Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Jenkins, a clinical psychologist. I work a lot with relationships, and I'm here today to share 5 little thinking mistakes that can really kill intimacy. As a psychologist, I spend a lot of time thinking about thinking, and I'm going to share with you these 5 mistakes. I'm saving the 2 most destructive ones last, so stick around to hear those. In the context of a relationship, we get into what I call stinkin' thinking. You know what I'm talking about here? We all do it. It's the head trash that gets in and affects how we feel and how we interact with people and how we show up. That's why these thinking mistakes can kill intimacy so quickly. The first thinking mistake that I'd like to share with you here today is, I can't handle this. I can't handle this. This is the fundamental thinking error that drives anxiety. This is because of how your brain works, and your brain's doing exactly what it's supposed to. See, its job is to keep you safe and to prove you right. When you think, I can't handle this, that is both a threat and a declaration. Okay, the threat is that if you can't handle it, you're in danger. The declaration is telling your brain that you're not capable of handling whatever it is that you're facing. And that's part of what throws you into the defensive fight or flight response. The brain's doing what it's supposed to do. If you're in danger, it's supposed to kick you into the fight or flight response. This is where it gives you 2 options, okay? Either put up your dukes and fight, or put on your running shoes and get out of there as fast as you can. Think about it. Which one of those is going to help your intimate relationships the most? Fighting or getting out of there? Or you don't like your choices? That's why this thinking mistake is so destructive toward intimacy. Now, I called it a mistake because it's not even true. I can't handle it? Really? What could you possibly not handle? Now, our imagination will give us all kinds of answers to that question about things that we can't handle. But look at your experience for a minute. You've already handled absolutely everything so far your entire life. Isn't that true? Some of my clients tell me, well, I'm not very proud about how I handled it. I sure could have handled it differently or better. This is just our brain telling us all the ways that we might be able to change things up in the future. It gets confusing and complicated because it is true that maybe you could do things better, but it's also true that you handled it. And why would that stop being true? You've got a 100% track record. You've already handled everything so far. That's error number 1. Let's go to the second little thinking mistake that gets in people's way, and that is that our circumstances are extraordinary. I'm sorry, they're not. I've been a shrink for 30 years. You can't shock me. I have heard some of the darndest stuff you can imagine in my 3 decades as a clinical psychologist. I doubt that whatever you're dealing with in your family is extraordinary, meaning that nobody's ever experienced this before. Now, little caveat. I get it, that your circumstances are unique to you, and they're extraordinary to you. But my point is they're not extraordinary to humankind because people all over the planet have been handling whatever it is you're handling for decades, centuries already before you. There are people on the planet right now who are dealing with very similar things. Not exactly the same, I get that, but of the same category. Do you believe that? Open your eyes a little bit and see that, because the thinking that our circumstances are extraordinary causes a problem. And that problem is that you can't help me. There's nothing, I've tried everything. I hear this from people all the time. It's not even possible that you've tried everything. That is stinking thinking. It's a mistake that we make cognitively, and it gets us stuck. It doesn't help us to move forward. Our circumstances are extraordinary? No, They're just yours. I've got 3 more, and remember, I'm saving the 2 most destructive for last. But before we get to that, I just want to take a moment to invite you to subscribe. And I've got a little cheat sheet for you of 9 principles that are guaranteed to save your relationship. Go to the URL on your screen as soon as you've finished watching this video today and pick that up. It's going to save some things. drpauljenkins.com/9, the number 9, principles. These are principles that are guaranteed to save your relationship. We won't get into those on today's video because I want to get to those last 3 thinking errors. You ready? Here's the 3rd one. This is a deal breaker. Now, the concept deal breaker comes from negotiations, where you're working toward a deal, but there's some element that becomes a deal breaker. In other words, we can't move forward with this because of that. The idea of a deal breaker in a relationship is typically not helpful. I gave you a tool just a minute ago with the 9 principles that you can get a PDF copy of, and one of those is forgiveness. This is an interesting concept in clinical psychology because a lot of times we don't enact that principle because of the deal breaker thing that somebody did. Look, we're all human. We all make mistakes. We all have weaknesses. And if you identify someone's weakness as being a deal breaker, you're also ignoring all of the strengths and potential contributions that they can bring to the table. I guess I've kind of lost my belief in this concept of a deal breaker over 30 years of clinical practice when I've seen that there are no true deal breakers that I can think of. Now, I get challenged on this all the time. What about abuse? Well, the principle from the 9 principles that I referred to earlier, the principle to address that is humility, where you're willing to change, and forgiveness on the other end. That's not easy. It's simple. The principles that we teach in our coaching programs are very simple, but simple and easy aren't the same thing. The idea that there is a deal breaker has you focusing on the wrong things if you want to really create a strong relationship. So I would invite you to rethink that. Coming in close behind that deal breaker idea is the next one. Something is wrong with them. Okay, them meaning my spouse, my partner, this person that I'm in relationship with. Something is wrong with them. I go the rounds with some of my even top clients on this point. They believe in their heart of hearts that something is wrong with their spouse, and that's what's causing the problem in the intimacy. The truth is, it's not the problem your spouse has that causes the intimacy problems. It's your thinking that your spouse has a problem that causes the intimacy problems. Did you follow that? This is a hard one for most people to grasp. And I have people pay me a lot of money to try to fix their spouse. They're convinced that it's their spouse that has the problem. And that's the problem. Now, before you fire me or turn this video off, consider for just a moment that that's not a helpful thought. There's reasons for this, and it goes back to some of the most powerful research that's been done in relationships by Dr. John Gottman in the Gottman Institute. This has been replicated over 30 years, showing that the most destructive pattern to a relationship is what he called the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Are you familiar with these? The 4 horsemen are criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. The reason it's problematic to think that your spouse has a problem or that something is wrong with them is because that feels like criticism to them. As soon as they feel criticized, they get defensive. We're off to the races with that destructive pattern that was identified by Dr. Gottman. Trust me, as a professional with 3 decades of clinical experience, that this is one of the most destructive thoughts that you can have in a relationship. And the last one is equally destructive. Here it is. Something's wrong with me. It's the same problem as thinking that your spouse has a problem or that something's wrong with your spouse, but you've turned it internal. Something's wrong with me. It's the same problem with a different enemy. Do you see that? You are not the enemy. You are the solution to building and sustaining the kind of relationship where you can experience connection and intimacy. You're the solution to it. You're not the problem. Now, are you doing everything right? No, probably not. Is your spouse doing everything right? No, probably not. That's why we have the 9 principles to fall back on, to work on what's right, not who's right. When we think something's wrong with me, we become self-destructive. It's not a helpful thought. Can you improve? Yeah, absolutely. And when is that going to stop being true? You will always have ample opportunity to improve and learn and develop. You know what? I love what Maya Angelou said about this. She said, do the best you know how to do. And check it out. You're already doing that, aren't you? She went on to say, when you know better, do better. Even in listening to this video today, and thank you for staying with me, you've got some ideas about how to improve things. Now that you know better, do better. You've got this. You probably picked up from this video that there's a lot of personal development we get to do if we want to improve our relationships. And we've got you on this. Watch that next video about how you can reprogram your mind to stay strong and positive. We've got your back on this.